Welcome to Construction Genius. My name is Eric Anderton, and my guest today is Matt Harris. He is the Chief Product and Strategy Officer of Viewpoint. And Viewpoint has been a construction software industry leader for more than 40 years. And they focus on connecting critical business functions like accounting and project management with field operations. Matt and I have a very good discussion about how critical technology is in every part of a construction company, particularly in terms of when they need to get data out of their jobs that is clear and that is usable to help them understand where they're being successful and where they're falling short. We talk about the implementation of technology into construction companies and why some companies succeed and why others don't. We talk about change management and how the change that occurs when a software package is installed has a lot of effect on the way a construction company does business. And so you have to be able to drive that change from both above and embrace it from below in your organization. And then we talk about 3 action steps that a construction company can take when they are implementing software to see that it goes well and that they get the most out of it in terms of their return on investment. I really appreciate Matt coming on the show today. I appreciate you listening. If you could please give us a review and a rating if you found this show helpful, a 5-star review if you think we've earned it, and of course share Construction Genius with other construction professionals and executives. That helps us to get publicized and the podcast to grow. I appreciate you listening here today and enjoy my interview with Matt. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Matt, thank you for joining me today on the show.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me, Eric. I'm looking forward to the discussion with you.
Now, we're recording this April 2nd, 2020. We're right in the midst of triage in terms of the coronavirus crisis. So I know a lot of folks at this point are in a realm of unknowns. By the time this podcast goes to air, we'll probably be, the end of May, around that time. And it's likely that we're going to be looking at some sort of recession, whether it's a V, as we all hope, that would be great, but it's probably going to be a U of some length. What is your perspective on the importance of technology solutions for construction companies as they're going through a recession?
Yeah, that's a great question. So unfortunately, I think as we get through the health crisis of this all, I think the pending economic crisis will follow shortly thereafter, and that's what we're looking in front of us. So as with any business, our own business or any contractor business, at that point, it really comes down to survival. And what is the company doing to maintain its balance sheet, to maintain its profit and loss, its cash, its critical resources in terms of its contractual relationships, its employees, its vendor relationships, subcontractor base. All of that becomes part of the survival or sustenance that any contractor requires. And that's where technology can play a role, particularly software, and particularly good job cost software, good project management, and good data software that gives a contractor visibility into what's happening with their business. It's fundamental for contractors in these periods to have a really full understanding of their assets and liabilities, their balance sheet, to have very crisp clarity around their profit and losses, around profitability of any particular projects that they have ongoing, around profit fade that they may be experiencing, and getting real-time visibility into that is critical. Obviously, cash balances play an important role in this all. So the timing of payments, the timing of progress receivables, those all become critical in the life cycle or the life management, if you will, of a contractor in a business downturn.
Let me just interrupt you there real quick. So let's say I'm a construction executive. I'm leading my company, and I'm in a meeting doing some scenario planning, and I'm going maybe worst case scenario. And like you said, and I think you said it very well, what contractors are looking to do in a recession is to survive.
Okay. But I'm doing scenario planning, and I know a lot of contractors, they tend to be optimists. They tend to be, hoping for the best, but not necessarily always planning for the worst. If you were giving some advice to a contractor about how to go through scenario planning, what are some key metrics that you would be advising them to be looking at in order to effectively go through that process?
Well, first, I think one of the first key metrics that any owner of a construction company is going to start to look at, and that they need to, continue to look at, is the health and strength of their backlog. Not only what's going to keep them alive tomorrow once the next job is done. And so the diversity of their backlog, the strength of their backlog, a forecast of the profitability of their backlog based upon their estimates and their known costs and expenses against that all gives an owner an insight into where their backlogs the strength of their future business and what things may look like tomorrow once the current job is done. And then if backlogs aren't where they need to be, there's a lot of contractors who have sought out new types of work, either in new niches and new verticals, like low voltage work, for example, or work out of state or in different regions where there may be more opportunity, or in the new environment that we'll be in, perhaps in healthcare work. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for growing areas of construction, which the good firms are going to take advantage of and really be able to grow into those. So that backlog management is going to be an imperative. In addition to that, obviously, the management of the current project is at the forefront as well. And in the management of current projects, it's going to be really a day-to-day understanding of the profitability of those projects that you're working on. It's the profitability and the management of your expenses against your budget. What's changing? What's adding to your expenses? What's eroding your profit forecast? What's improving your profit forecast? So you have a clear understanding as you finish jobs and as you progress against those jobs, are you going to be making the money you originally thought on those jobs, or are things changing that would either erode profits or make them worse? Unfortunately, in our industry, we see a great deal of time, over half the time, project profits end up fading from what we originally thought they would be. So having crystal clear visibility on that is an imperative.
Let me ask you this. Viewpoint is a software package that a variety of contractors use. Am I right there?
That is true. Yep.
Just give me the dollar amount of your largest client, just off the top of your head.
Oh, it's a $3, $4, $5 billion company.
And then your smallest client.
Probably $5 million.
Okay, good. So a nice range there. So what are some of the common challenges that a company that is very large and a company that's very small share when it comes to the part of the business that you work with them on? And what are some of the differences between the large ones and the small ones? Can you give me a little bit on that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. So I mentioned this, the construction companies and the executive teams and the ownership groups in the downturn, they're going to manage their balance sheets and their profit and loss statements exceedingly carefully. That at a high level sounds, pretty straightforward. But the challenges in construction, when you have distributed job sites, when you have a lot of different work, when it's complex work that involves self-performed work or subcontracted work, the actual management of all that activity and its translations to costs in this point is hard. And so having materials that are delivered to a job site, then turned into an actual cost that you record against a project, or labor or equipment or anything like that, the actual translation of all that activity, the thousands of bits that go into the creation of a building or a bridge or a highway, the translation of that into your costs, into your profitability of a project is hard. And that's whether you're a $3 billion company or a $5 million company. That's the commonality that we all have. And so the ability to really have a good understanding about how all that work that you're doing manifests itself in how much money you're making, your profits, that's a common challenge that we all have in construction. The difference that a large company may have over a small company is that a large company may be replicating that in dozens or hundreds or even thousands of different job sites or different locations and different types of projects. A smaller company may have 1, 2, or 3. And so that's the basis of it. It's just different types of scale, different types of maybe input parameters or materials or equipment and things like that.
So the scale makes a difference, but the issue of getting the information into a place where it's collated together and is understandable and is usable, that's really the big challenge.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big challenge. So you use a piece of equipment and you use it for half a day on a job, that's good to know. But knowing how that impacts the profitability of the job is really what matters.
What do you think the best performing contractors do to overcome that specific challenge?
Yeah, the best performing contractors, what they're doing is they are understanding their activity and directly connecting it to charges or costs against the job so that they know holistically the profitability of individual projects, and then that as that rolls up into their company overall. That's what the best one's doing. They're not doing it just in the aggregate, but they're looking at each activity on the job in the phases of the job and relating that to the overall profitability.
How do the best contractors balance the need for that type of reporting with the pushback that they might get from the field about you guys are micromanaging us, and why are you making us do all these cost reports and stuff when we just want to go out there and throw up some buildings and do what we do?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think even, most of the people in the field nowadays know that they're there not only to build, an awesome building or a bridge or a road, but also they're there as part of a business to make money. And they understand the business implications of what they're doing. And the superintendents and certainly the project managers and the foremen and people all know the requirement that they have there. And they feel that they have a responsibility for not only just the quality of what they're building, but the efficiency and productivity with which they're building. So I think that there's a common understanding of that. But also with technology nowadays, and what technology can do is kind of really simplify and enable some of the information capture so that it's almost seamless to the person on the job site. So it's almost seamless that if a piece of equipment, if a backhoe is used at a job site, with technology nowadays, we can track where that backhoe is. We know if it's being used or not. And just by virtue of the fact whether it's being used at a particular job site, we can start to allocate costs for that backhoe automatically to the project. So it really can happen seamlessly within a project without a great deal of overhead, if any, to a foreman or a project superintendent.
Thinking about this in terms of the relationship between the field and the office and the gathering of the information, what differences have you seen as the millennial generation is now the largest generation in the workforce? They're digital natives. They're comfortable in this arena. What differences are you seeing in terms of the willingness to adopt technology and then the ability to adopt technology in a construction company?
Yeah, so nowadays, even a laborer shows up on a job site, certainly a tradesperson or a foreman or a project manager and executive, everybody's showing up on the job site with their own personal device. And so they will have an ability to interact with relatively sophisticated technology just in their day-to-day lives, whether they're communicating with their family or doing their own personal banking or whatever. And so that happens nowadays. And with good construction software now, it's all mobile enabled. It's going to run on any mobile device. It's going to run on tablets. And that type of interface that people are used to using on a day-to-day basis, like almost every minute of the day, is really the interface that every single construction employee has access to today. And so if you're tracking equipment productivity, if you're managing a work order against a boiler repair, if you're doing a safety talk with your crew in the morning, all of this applications in this and this work is enabled with very easy to use mobile applications or tablet-based applications. And so the actual usability of them by anybody on the job site has really become trivial and very simple to do.
When you're coming to a construction company, and let's just assume they're relatively sophisticated, but they're maybe a little bit set in their ways. As you're presenting technology solutions, what are some of the biggest objections that you guys face in terms of implementing new construction solutions in an organization?
The objections or the challenges that we see when it comes to implementing software are really threefold, and they're really some fundamental challenges. First, any kind of adoption of technology is going to require some form of change. And so good change management practice is just fundamental to any adoption of new technology platform. And what that means is, establishing good cross-functional teamwork, having high clarity of objectives, what's required, getting constant feedback and educational processes along the way to ensure that there's a cross-functional and broad buy-in, and then managing the rollout and deployment of the technology in a methodical way. So that change management is first and foremost a
Who
critical
drives the
requirement.
change management, do you think, in the successful implementations?
It's going to be both parties. And so certainly the technology vendor plays a role, but certainly the company themselves, the implementer, really has to enable their teams to be part of this process.
Yeah, let me ask, in successful implementations, where in your experience, at what point in the construction company's org chart is sort of the champion? Where do they usually sit in the business?
Well, certainly it's going to be, in what we're rolling out is enterprise-wide software. So it's going to be an owner or a C-level executive who's going to be the principal sponsor of what we're doing. And at that point, the best organizations have a fully cross-functional implementation team from operations, from HR, from finance, from business development, who are part of this process and then work even within their own organizations to find champions who will start to advise and pilot the rollouts.
It's a heavy lift then, isn't it?
It is certainly a heavy lift. It is a heavy lift to do this as in any change management. And so, what we've seen effectively is when there's good cross-functional engagement, where people understand the goals, where people can guide the process individually and feel like they can be part of the process, that makes a real difference in terms of the success of the implementation or not. There's also, along with that, is just good, effective project management. Project management from both the vendor side, but it's not just a vendor responsibility. There needs to be project management on the contractor side as well. So clarity in the deliverables, the timing of the deliverables, the organization of the resources to pull that all together. And really, I would say the ability of the teams to have a high degree of say-do, to meet their commitments in a reasonable, timely way, on track, that will create a successful implementation as well.
What do you see the best teams internally, the best construction companies, as they're doing this implementation? What do you see their rhythm of communication is between the departments and between the champions within the construction company in terms of making sure that they're on track?
It really depends on the phases of the implementation. I certainly think in planning phases, as you're doing internal buy-in, there's weekly meetings as amongst the multifunctional groups. So operations would have their own requirements and deployment meetings, as would accounting and HR and business development, and the executive staffs would as well. So you'd start to see that at the very least on a weekly basis within overall project team coming together as well. As the deployment and rollout, then you might see daily stand-ups happening. And so be a quick, what we call stand-up, quick 30-minute reviews. Here's what we're going to do today. Here's what we're planning on today. Here's what happened yesterday. Any issues from yesterday, let's get ready for today. So those types of things happen on a daily basis, and really challenges, punch list items, if you will, are kind of ticked off on a daily basis.
Why is it that implementations fail? Not necessarily just technology in general, whether it's a drone package or something to do with a job site or, a ERP system. What are the reasons that these fail?
The one thing I'd say, and I see this from time to time, is that often technology is employed to replace a somewhat difficult process that is being done manually. And so a contractor may have a particular way of measuring their equipment productivity or the time in the field that they have in the field, or doing safety talks. And they do that, and it's probably a manual process today, or even measuring the material inventory. It's a manual process today where they have, some form of doing it. So ultimately they want to fix that. They want to be more efficient at that process. They want to take time out of doing that process. They want to take it off of paper or Excel or other things and use a software package to enable that. But in many cases, the software package is designed around some best practices that the industry uses. But those best practices may not be exactly the way the contractor does it him or herself, right? Where I've seen things, where things go well is when the contractor can think about ways that they can adjust their own processes to really adopt the best practices particularly well. And in many cases, the software is really going to take into account a best practice of whether it's an accounting method or a time collection method or an inventory method. But there are times when a contractor feels as if they want to maintain their manual process, but now with software. And that can sometimes be a challenge. Bending the software to try to, fit a particular process at a single company can sometimes relate in inefficiencies of the software or customizations that you otherwise don't need, or just kind of, expensive deployment of technology for which it really isn't designed. And that's where I think things get a little bit, can get sideways.
So what you're saying then is that when someone is implementing a software program, particularly one that is as broad as the one that you guys offer, they have to be willing going in to make some changes to the way that they do business.
Yeah, I'd say the best implementations really take advantage of some of the strength of the software. And whether it's Viewpoint software or other software, there's some really great software out there. And the software is designed by professionals that takes into account some of the industry best practices. Most good software does that. And it looks at, variety of different companies and the way they're doing things. And we work closely with various industry organizations like the CFMA, the Construction Financial Managers Association, or the AGC, or other bodies. And we get advice from them on, what practices and processes are you guys seeing, and what is your constituency see? And we design that into our software. In the cases, I think the best successes we have is where contractors can take advantage of that and really, start to, tune their processes to consume the value of our software or others. It's when we have to design something more bespoke or different, or try to replicate a process from older technology or a manual process. That's where I've seen, I think, where technology, whether it's our technology or others, it runs into challenges.
There's this idea of people being willing to change their processes. And I had a thought that, do you find any contractors struggle to implement technology just because culturally they're not willing for that sort of structure, perhaps, or discipline? Maybe they're used to running their gig in a certain way, and they've always done it this way, and they've heard that they should implement technology and they try it, but it's just culturally not a fit.
Yeah, I mean, that's in any organization. It's construction or retail or banking or what have you. There's always a culture of what we're willing to change and what we're not willing to change. I will say I've been with Viewpoint in the construction software industry now for nearly a decade. And what I've seen in the past 3 years, the contractor's willingness to change, and in particular adopt what we call this digital transformation, is stronger and a bigger driver than ever. And by digital transformation, we mean the adoption of cloud, browser, and mobile technologies as an enabler for the business. 2-3 years ago, most even of our customers were saying, the cloud thing's a fad. It's not for me. It might be for the other guy, but it's never going to be in my company. And now, when we're seeing, particularly in today's world where workers need to work remotely, where the threat of cybersecurity or intrusion is always upon us, and where the complexity of managing high-performing software, it's more complex than ever. The real benefits of cloud, everybody's seeing right now. I think now more than ever, we're seeing more and more contractors demanding to be in the cloud for remote access, for security, and for ease of use, and being done in a cost-effective way. That is a complete transition for where the industry was just 2-3 years ago.
What do you attribute that shift to?
In our current business environment, a lot of people need flexibility in where they're going to work, right? And so obviously the cloud enables a remote working. And so you and I, as we're doing this right now, can do it from our home offices, and we can do it from wherever using cloud technology. Security is becoming, unfortunately, another big concern. Degree of security systems and environments that we can employ in our cloud is far, far, far beyond any security system that any single company can do. We can take advantage of state-of-the-art security systems and have them certified at a level that is well above and beyond nearly any single one of our customers can deploy in their own environments. And so that is something that we can provide and enable systems that are far, far more secure to any kind of cyber threat that may be out there. And then the third is that the costs are just coming down as well. And so we can take advantage of scalable cloud platforms to deploy our software like Azure or AWS and others, and make it not only easy and secure for our customers to use our software in the cloud, but now also make it pretty cost effective as well.
Do you find that with the generational shift, there's any difference as well as far as receptivity to new technology?
Yeah, for sure. And nowadays, for new employees coming into a company, if you don't have a mobile app for what you're doing, or if you don't have something that will run in their browser at home, or at least run on their laptop, it's almost like, what are you doing? And so it's almost a must-have. And so you need to be able to demonstrate to employees now, just to recruit people, that you have a modern technology stack, that you're going to have them, give them the tools that they need to, run their jobs and their business and their profession, wherever they are.
Excellent. So as we wrap up here, what are 3 action items or some words of advice that you would give to a construction company owner or senior executive as they're contemplating a technology change and as they're bringing it into their organization?
Well, particularly now, as we may be going through a difficult economic period, what we've found is that the best companies, when their project work may be slowing down a little bit and they may have some time, it's a great time to kind of retool their infrastructure, particularly from an IT perspective. So at the very least, we think it's a great time to reach out to some of your current partners and see where you can engage with them to either re-implement or tune up their existing software to get the most out of what you have today. And there's a lot of opportunity to do that. And certainly, us at Viewpoint, we're now working more with our current customers on re-implementing systems and helping them get the most out of our software as they have time to kind of, tune up their infrastructure. It's also a great time to, as you're doing this tune up, if you see software that either doesn't fit where you want to be in the future, is not enabling this digital transformation, is not giving you the data insights that you really need to run your business, then it's a great time to reach out and kind of retool and find the software package that can help you do that. And there's certainly Viewpoint and others who are loving to work closely with contractors right now to help that. And it's an awesome time, now that operations may have calmed down a little bit, to really think about how we can change management and transform a company across the board and across all functions.
Great. So as we wrap up here, I'd like to ask my guests, Matt, you're up there in Portland. What's your favorite restaurant up there in Portland, Oregon?
There's so much good places to eat up here in Portland. We really like the food cart scene here. One of my favorites is a restaurant called Pok Pok, if you like chicken wings.
How do you spell that? Pok Pok?
Pok Pok, P-O-K, P-O-K.
P-O-K, P-O-K. Okay, awesome. So Pok Pok up there in Portland, Oregon. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. Just give us a little bit of information where people can find you guys if they're interested in looking into what you guys have to offer.
We're Viewpoint. We've been around for 45 years, committed construction software. We provide software that enables a contractor to integrate their back office financial solutions with their operations team and out to their job site in the field. And so at Viewpoint, we have a solution suite, which we call Viewpoint One, which provides a suite of solutions which connect data and resource management in the field, enables you to collaborate on that information with your project team, and then roll it into your financials in the back office. It's called Viewpoint One. You can find out more information about us at viewpoint.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today. Thanks for sharing that information, and I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with me today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. I enjoyed it.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.